We are being live streamed for the public. So I am Councillor Georgette Polly. I'm Vice Chair of the Planning Committee, and I am chairing this meeting on behalf of Councillor Kelly. We have apologies of absence from Councillor Kelly. Is that?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Item 2 is to approve the minutes from the Planning Committee of the 20th of October and 16th of November. I believe we do have a correction to the minutes. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Can I make a couple of corrections? On page 14, statement of support was Councillor Frazee. That's not true. That was his objected. And also, somewhere here, because I did read it, and I apologize, Chair, I can't find it right now. Sorry, it's on page 15. I said, however, 70% would be of the market rent value. It's 70% market value rent. It's not 70% of the whole entire development. Thank you. Can we just add in as well that that is not in here. Councillor Tandy did say that more of these developments should come forward. Thanks.
As I wasn't present at that particular meeting, we will just need to get that verified. Councillor Carter.
Councillor Tandy was talking about affordable housing as a whole, and we've had this conversation since.
Councillor Tandy, that this application is 100% affordable homes. So though he was talking about affordable homes, it's 100% affordable homes. So it does apply, but he said more of these developments should be forthcoming. Thank you.
Yes, more being 100% affordable. I think the distinction's quite clear there. Sorry, Chair.
I think the best course of action, as they are recorded, we will go back over the recording and we will do a verbatim statement with Councillor Tandy's agreement. Are there any other notes from the minutes? Rhiannon, I'm just asking the clerk of the meeting if she's got those amendments so far about the Councillor Fraser Massey is recorded in the minutes as being supportive of a application when in fact he's very clearly spoke against it.
Yes, that is correct. We have noticed that mistake and it has been amended online, so the minutes have been amended to that effect.
And Councillor Watson's comment about her statement on page 15 as well, about 70%.
I wasn't aware of that amendment till this evening, but we can arrange to amend that.
And again, we'll go back over the recording just to be accurate. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on the minutes? No. Okay, then I'll move on to matters of urgent business. Myself as chair have not agreed to any matters of any urgent business this evening. We then move to declaration of interests, and these are interests not rather than lobbying or correspondence. Has any members got any? Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. Though I won't be voting because I wasn't at the last meeting and I didn't do the site visit because I know the site very well. Reference 22/01/241/full, the Hollies in Rectory Road, Orsett. I've had office site visits, know the name, know the resident, and have had correspondence from him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other councillors? So when we come to that application, we will, because there are a number of councillors that can't actually vote on that. Councillor Little. Okay, thank you. Next agenda item would... Has anyone received any lobbying on any of the sites that are on the agenda tonight? I have received a communication regarding Purfleet Road, but any other members?
Yeah, I've received received the email that most people have copied into.
Thank you very much, and I have forwarded that on to the monitoring officer just to make him aware that we have been approached. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to planning appeals. Has anybody got any comments on the planning appeals? I have one question I'd like to ask our officer, Jonathan Keane. Sorry, Jonathan, just looking at the table, I'm not sure whether it's just a bit of a software problem, but we seem to have, on the 1st of December, had an appeal in December and lost, not allowed an appeal in December. Thank you.
That's correct. They are shown in the wrong column, and they should have been added to the November total, so it should have been 12 and 5 for November. So apologies for that.
Thank you very much. We'll just get that corrected. Any other comments on the appeals? Thank you very much. We do have one speaker on one of the applications this evening, and we will invite that speaker to address the committee as we approach that application. So we'll start with planning application 22/01241 the Hollidays Rectory Road. If we could just ask the officers to talk us through this application firstly, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rhiannon. Hopefully you can all see. Yeah, excellent. You can see the presentation behind me. It's working. So, as members are aware, this item relating to replacement dwelling at the Hollies off Rectory Road in Orsett was deferred at the previous meeting in November to enable a member's site visit to take place. This visit took place on Wednesday the 23rd of November, and I met councillors Piccolo, Arnold, Thandy and Shinnick at the site along with officers. The applicant was also in attendance and welcomed members to view the site. I'll flick through the presentation as the vast majority of officers saw this presentation last month. So members viewed the site and officers indicated where the replacement dwelling would be located along with the location of the Orsett Conservation Area and Greenbelt boundary. This slide in front of you here is one that I showed to members at the site visit and have added to the presentation for people's benefit, indicating you can see the blue line there bisecting the site, to the left of which lies the conservation area, to the immediate right of which lies the Greenbelt. There are no other updates for members since this site visit. Apologies there. The proposal would continue to be considered to be contrary to Greenbelt policy with respect to its overall size, footprint and volume, and would be considered inappropriate development harmful to the openness of the Greenbelt. Secondly, there continue to be concerns regarding the layout, footprint, scale and use of materials for the proposed replacement dwelling and its poor relation to the existing character and appearance of the conservation area. And the report and recommendation is as per page 40 in your agenda. Happy to take any questions if any members have any.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for the update. As we did say, not everybody on the committee can actually vote on this application this evening. Are there any questions for the officer? Councillor Piccolo.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just confirm if you found out, when we visited site, there were a number of mature trees along the back boundary and down the side? We were led to believe that these trees were on the boundary line, and the fence that run behind it have actually been in place for 20 odd years. In other words, they were there prior to the current landowner moving in. Can we just confirm that that was actually the case?
I can confirm that we have, I appreciate I wasn't at the previous committee meeting, but I understand what Councillor Piccolo's asking, Chair, with respect to the position of the boundary and its relationship to the curtilage of the dwelling. And I can confirm that the Lawful Development Certificate from 2006 did identify the extent of that site as all falling within the red line curtilage of the property, as we saw on site, and indeed is shown on the plan, not just here. So what the council is referring to, if you look at the boundary of the site there on the far east of the site, you can see what's indicated as a row of trees there. That forms the actual extent of the residential curtilage, which is also shown on the site plan there. So that is as shown, and if that answers your question.
Yeah, it was just that was there. That's been there for some significant time. So prior to the current landowner moving in.
It's been there for many decades now, and that's shown in the planning history and the Lawful Development Certificate that was referred to before. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just follow on from that question? If the new build went ahead, is any of those trees in jeopardy of being pulled down or cut down in order for the build to happen?
No, Chair, they aren't. Going back to the layout, that's probably the best one I can show you that shows it most clearly. The majority of the trees and the vegetation on the site would remain. There may well be the odd smaller tree and shrub that may well be removed within the main part of the garden, but those that are lying along the boundary, the eastern boundary, and along the southern boundary would remain.
Are there any more questions from the members for the officers? Councillor Piccolo, sorry.
Yeah, I don't suppose you'll have the answer to this question, but do we know how regularly the footpath that runs along the side of the property is used? You know, is it well maintained? Is it? You may not have the answer, but
We don't have any data in that regard. Because no data has been collected on that, but it is a public right of way. I've walked upon it whilst this application's been considered, because I wanted to see how accessible it is. It's easily accessible, and not just in that immediate part. So if I go back to the site plan, because that's probably, yes, this one here actually that shows best. So if you can envisage where the Whitmore Arms is there, so, good, I can show you on here. Just bear with. It's moving. This is the Whitmore Arms here. You can see where the cross is on the centre, just south of the Hollies, and this is the entrance to the footpath, which is clearly labelled, and this part is hard surface, the immediate part that runs down past the side of the car park, and then it becomes less hard surface, but it is well used. And I walked certainly along to here, and at this point it's a track between the fields, but it's labelled, it's designated, and it's used. So, you know, that's as much as I can really comment with regards to how well used it is. But
I'm just going to take advice, Councillor Little, because you're not. can I just ask the clerk, because you're excluded from this application, the same as myself, because we weren't at the previous planning committee. But you're not here as ward member this evening, Councillor Little. Thank you. So I'll just for clarification, just so we are clear, Councillor Arnold, Councillor Carter, Councillor Piccolo, Councillor Watson and Councillor Shinnock and Councillor Tandy are the members of this committee that can actually ask questions, enter into debate and vote on this application. Thank you. So on that, oh, sorry, Highways Engineer would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. I would just mention that I took part in the charrettes for the local plan in terms of where obviously members of the public, local councillors and local people could talk about various bits, and then the one I was on, all of them, including Dorset, and it was mentioned that this is an important link between the village and the surrounding green areas, just to mention that.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, is everyone happy to enter into debate now? Agreed? So we'll open the debate for this application with the members that are able to. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. So I didn't go on the site visit because obviously I was working, so apologies for that. However, after looking at the application, it looks like the house is going to be demolished but just pushed back a bit. And the bit that we are talking about is a strip of green belt that sits in the garden. To be honest with you, I've got no problem for this to take place because the green belt is quite small in comparison. We put through 240 on the green belt last planning, or I didn't. So therefore, I'm in favour of this application. I think that it's not causing any more traffic. It's out the line sight now of the neighbours, and the neighbours have got no objections to this at all. Thank you.
We have Councillor Shinnock and then Councillor Arnold.
Yeah, I was present at the site visit, and for me, I think it will be beneficial to the neighbours surrounding that house that it's pushed back, and also where they're going to take up the green belt, there is an existing building what's coming down, so that's already built, you know, it's an outbuilding. So for me, I've got no problem for this application to go through because it's not impeding on the green belt very much. When we put all these other houses through, you know, 230 or 240 on green belt, this is a goer for me. I didn't vote for the 230 or 240 though, okay?
Thank you, Councillor Shinnock. We are going to Councillor Arnold and then Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. And first off, I'd like to thank the applicants for the opportunity to actually visit the property. I will actually go straight in. I am actually going to follow the officer's recommendation and vote for refusal. I do think that there aren't any exceptional circumstances for this property to be built on Greenbelt. I do believe that the property that is there at the minute is quite substantial already. And probably I would think, going in line with the question that I did ask at the last committee, there wouldn't be any problems at all with regards any upgrading of the property to make it more energy efficient, etc., 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 and possibly even a small extension or modest extension to enlarge the property should the applicant wish. I do completely understand that this is a village centre and is a very, very desirable place to live. And I probably do understand the applicants wish to actually build themselves a very nice super-sized home, but that does not take away from the fact that it is development on the green belt and there are no sufficient exceptional circumstances. So I would move to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you for your input, Councillor Arnold. We go to Councillor Carter, Piccolo, and then we'll come back to Councillor Watson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I am much of the same view of Councillor Arnold on this. I don't believe there to be any reasons to overturn the refusal. I think it's quite a challenging application as it sits both in the preservation area and the green belt. So I'm minded to refuse at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Piccolo.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, being on the site visit, I looked at the site. I looked at the impact on the green belt. I think sometimes what we have to bear in mind is that it's a theoretical impact on the green belt and not necessarily a visual impact on the green belt. In other words, apart from the people that use the footpath, and that has got mature trees along it, which in the summer, when they're in full leaf, screens the site to a certain extent, and I'm sure some small shrubs could be planted there to screen it even further if need be. So it's not, to my mind, it's not impinging any more on the green belt than it already does. In actual fact, because of the fact that it's actually, in my view, because of the fact it's actually being moved back a bit, and the front entrance to the two properties, because obviously the entrance that they drive down relates to the property that's adjacent to it as well. There's the plans in there for that to be landscaped. So in actual fact, the general appearance to the front of the buildings could actually be improved by this application. So I do take in mind what other councillors said, but I say it's, whilst Greenbelt is precious, I don't think this is going to have any more impact on the Greenbelt than what the existing building already has. It's shifting it and it's going to be a bit bigger, but it's going to be no more visible to 99% of the population than it already is.
Thank you, Councillor Piccolo. And now Councillor Watson, if you'd like to come back.
Thank you. I totally agree with Councillor Piccolo. I don't think there would be a problem with the green belt. It's not unsightly, not like the one that's going up in East Tilbury. It is unprecedented, East Tilbury, that we even think about building on the green belt. And so on this occasion, because I think this is in a garden, it's in the boundaries of the garden, mature trees are not going to be destructive in any shape or form, and actually, like as Councillor Piccolo said, it stays away from it. I would go for this, but I just find it absolutely laughable that a site visit was done for one house when no site visit at all was put forward for 240 on East Tilbury, and everybody just voted that through. But sorry, I know it's a different planning permission, I get that, but I'm so angry when I sit here and we're denying a piece of land with acres we just, well, voted through because it's 100% affordable. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just remind committee, firstly, that application's coming back, so it hasn't. And can we not keep using this committee meeting to refer back to it? It's not appropriate. The committee has taken place, the debate has taken place. So I can hear your frustrations, but this is a separate meeting, so if we can park the East Tilbury application, please. Councillor Carter, you want to come in on this application?
Thank you, Chair, and I'll change my answer, my debate point accordingly to what was said. For the green belt, we need to have certain circumstances, and replacing one home with another doesn't add to the housing need of the area. I feel if we're going for green belt, we need to have more housing. Not all the time. It will be on a case-by-case basis, but as in yesterday's full council, Councillor Worrell made a great point that we haven't built enough homes in the borough. and that is mitigating circumstances. I don't believe this current application does. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Does anybody else want to come back in? Councillor Tandy, are you okay? If we've got no further debate, or then I'm minded to move move on this application. So the recommendation is for refusal on this application. I, as chair, wasn't at that planning committee, so I can only move the recommendations. And again, just for clarity, it will be Councillor Tandy, Arnold, Carter, Piccolo, Watson and Shinnick that are voting members on this. So as chair, I am moving firstly in line with the officer recommendation of refusal. Those that support that recommendation, can you please indicate? Thank you, councillors. And those against the recommendation? Thank you. We're just checking process because my next option now will be to move in for approval against the recommendation. But as I can't place a casting vote on this, I'm not quite sure where we are. So, as I suspected, I've just taken advice from the clerk of the committee and from my officers here. We will have to defer this application, unfortunately, because there will be no casting vote. So it will come back at the January. Councillor Piccolo.
Yeah, sorry, just for my clarification, but how deferring it till January make any difference? Would it be the fact that Councillor Kelly will be back in the chair? Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify because it could be. I was thinking we'd get to the same situation again. Thank you.
I think I've got Councillor Carter and Councillor Arnold asking for points of clarification, I take it.
Yeah, I think, sorry. Yeah, when Councillor Piccolo just asked the same question I was going to ask, I'm a little bit puzzled by that actually. But again, maybe it's a clarification point from myself. Because Councillor Kelly isn't present at this meeting, you know, where this is being considered, it's just purely for my own education, is he not then excluded from the vote itself because he hasn't attended this?
Okay. Can you tell you, Michael? Because he was present at the first meeting, because he chaired the first, so this is only a referred item back to this committee. So if if I'd been at that committee meeting, then I could have moved I can move for approval, but by the indication of the members, we would have three against and 3 in support. So I think unfortunately we're in that situation, as we said, because Councillor Little isn't able to join in the vote, nor can I. We're at a stalemate at the moment. So, but yes, thank you for. Please feel free, because it can get. But that's exactly the reason. Councillor Kelly was at the original planning committee where this was heard. He didn't have to go to the site visit, as we know, but he did have to listen to the original debate on it. I hope that is clear for everybody. Everybody happy? So on that basis, then I'm afraid this item will be deferred to the January committee. Thank you very much, members. I'm just going to ask the clerk about the actual ergonomics of the room at the moment. We're just seeing if we can control the Our next agenda item, when our clerk comes back, will be item 9 on the agenda, and that is application 22/00921/4. This is application for Perfleet Road in Aveley, and we can find that on pages 43 to 58 of our agenda. So we'll go to the officers first, if we can, for a presentation to the committee on this application.
Thank you, Chair. There are two updates for members since the agenda was published in relation to the application at 43 Perfleet Road. Two additional letters of objection have been received in relation to the proposal, one of which is from the ward councillor, Councillor Maureen Pearce. The objections raised in both the neighbour objection and the ward councillor's objection raise similar concerns to those already listed in the report before you. So the application site comprises of a detached bungalow and garage building on a corner plot located within a residential area of Aveley. This corner plot is located at the junctions of Perfleet Road and Love Lane. And the site is bordered by residential development. Up until March 2021, the site had established trees along the boundaries as well as extensive vegetation on the site. The existing access is located on Love Lane and leads to a garage at the rear of the site. The site sits at a slightly elevated position above the main road on Perfleet Road, with ground levels sitting approximately 1.4 metres higher within the site when compared to the highway on Perfleet Road. The proposal seeks the redevelopment of the site to provide 5 dwellings, comprising of 2 pairs of semi-detached 2-storey dwellings and 1 detached property. This layout plan shows the proposed layout with the dwellings located broadly along the notional building line of the existing pattern of development in Perfleet Road. The existing access to Love Lane would be removed and a new vehicle access would be proposed, providing a 2-way vehicle access on Perfleet Road, just here. The pedestrian access on Perfleet Road would be the pedestrian access on Perfleet Road, which exists at the western end of the site, would be resited to the eastern half of Perfleet Road. The private rear garden serving the 5 dwellings would be 12 metres in depth at its maximum, which would be deeper than the previous refusal that members considered in June this year. While the rear garden depths would be relatively short still, the proposal would not be considered likely to result in such an unacceptable loss of privacy for the neighbour to the immediate south of the site on Love Lane to justify refusing the application for this reason. Here's an elevation of the proposed street scene. So as you're looking at it, the detached property would be closest to the corner with the 2 pairs of semis fronting Purfleet Road with the existing development to the right of the image there. And here are some elevations of the proposed semi-detached pairs and the detached property, along with some floor plans. The proposed appearance of the properties would be considered appropriate. The proposal would provide 12 parking spaces on a car-dominated frontage, which is a concern and is included as a reason for refusal. The internal layout is considered relatively tight with respect to manoeuvring and the particularly close proximity of parking spaces to the front windows and doorways to serving the dwellings. The applicant has been asked to provide additional swept path analyses to demonstrate that all car parking spaces could be safely and practicably accessed and egressed. The applicant has provided these, however, the highways officer is concerned that the layout would still be particularly awkward and tight, resulting in some spaces not being realistically usable, and there is concern that parking would migrate onto the surrounding roads, which would be unacceptable in this location. Some photos and images of the site and the immediate street scene. So this is a view of the corner plot from the northeast, looking from Purfleet Road, and views of the site generally from Purfleet Road. And looking again from further south on Purfleet Road, looking up at the site on the right-hand side in the uppermost image there, and views of the site looking across from Love Lane, and some views from within the site. And the general street scene in Purfleet Road and Love Lane. There is concern that the proposals would, by virtue of the layout and the design of the frontage, the amount of hard landscaping and the car-dominated appearance of the front of the site, be likely to result in a development which would appear cramped and detrimental to the character and appearance of the street scene. The proposals would also lead to highway safety and parking concerns, given the tight layout and awkward design of the parking spaces on the frontage of the site. And the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons on page 56 of your agenda tonight. Happy to take any further questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Nadia. I will go to committee, and again, for a point of clarification, all members are allowed to comment, participate on this application. So I will open it up firstly for questions for officers. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Highways. Always highways. I'm just a little bit concerned about the turning points and actually the way it's laid out. And I thought that was on a bit of an incline anyway. So for things like waste trucks and ambulances and God forbid like a fire brigade, what can you tell me if this is adequate for them to do the turning points on that? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. The likelihood is that they would service the development from the front. My guess is that if it was an ambulance, they'd probably just pull in to the development, go up the slope and park in between the first set of car parking spaces. Can you put it back to one with the car parking? Yeah, that's fine. No. So an ambulance, so there's plenty of room for an ambulance or a fire engine, for instance, to get into the axis. It's 4.8 metres wide, so that's a standard axis width that two cars can actually pass if they needed to. So they could get up and just pull into the first bay. I would think it was going to be pretty tricky for them to get right into the site if they needed to, but I can't remember the width of the little road. It's 3.5, which I think should be sufficient for a fire engine to get in to depending on how well people are actually parked in there. As far as the refuse collection, I think they've got their bins down the front, so like most of the properties along Purfleet Road, they would be serviced from the front. So I think in emergency or whatever it is, an emergency service vehicle would have space to get in there if it needed to. I mean, it wouldn't, I would say it might be tricky to get towards the end house, but they could get in close enough for access, if you know what I mean.
Councillor Carter, then Councillor Thandy.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to the parking. In regards that it has enough parking spaces for not including visitors, but then how is that worked out in regards to this property? Because it's quite small, so it has to be one per household in Aveley.
Chair, I'm happy if Julian wants to answer that, or I can if he prefers. It's quite straightforward. So we have an adopted parking standard, and we also look at the level of accessibility for the area. In this case, the location is classed as a medium accessibility area. And we would be comfortable with 2 parking spaces per dwelling. Bearing in mind these are 3 or 4 bedroom properties, but in this location 2 would be adequate, plus 2 visitor spaces, hence the 10 for the properties and 2 visitor spaces overall. But the point of this of main concern with this particular proposal relates to the layout and accessibility of those spaces. If they're not usable, then the likelihood of the dozen being available and accessible is more challenging.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Carter?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Sandy.
Yeah, and thank you, Chair. I just need to know the history of the building, how long it's been boarded up.
That's an interesting one, Chair, because the property's been vacant for some time, and perhaps, I know the applicant is here this evening, he may have more specific detail in relation to that, but certainly when the authority had an enforcement complaint in relation to trees and vegetation being removed from the site, that was in March 2021, and it's certainly been vacant from at least that point, if not several months before that. So we are getting on for, certainly coming up for, must be 18 months, I would imagine, but we don't have exact details of how long it's been boarded up for. But it's certainly been vacant for, I would say, 18 months, but I couldn't give you an exact date.
Are there any other questions from the members? Councillor Piccolo.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just looking at the, I think I've just been able to see it, that the distance between the edge of the parking bays and the curb line, is that 3.4 metres, am I? I think I've just been able to focus in.
May I just clarify which parking space Councillor Piccolo is
Well,
referring
no,
to?
the parking spaces that run, sorry, the 6 parking spaces that run across the front of the houses, yep. There is a dimension on there after parking plot 3 to the curb line. Is it 3 metres or 3.4 metres? I don't know whether you can see.
It's not on that. It's not on that one.
All right. It's on the. It's not on your one that's up on the screen at the moment. It's actually on the.
It's 3.4 metres in between the 2 parking spaces for plot 3 and the back edge of the curbing and the start of the landscaping, which is at the centre there. It's a 3.4 on the plan.
Thank you.
Any further questions at this point from the committee? No. Okay, we do have a speaker on this application, Rakesh Kenneth from Montague. We'll now ask Mr. Kenneth to address the committee. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to look again at the proposals for 43 Purfleet Road. Following discussions with the LPA's principal planner, we have made further revisions to the scheme to provide 4 semi-detached houses and 1 detached, comprising 2 3-bedroom and 3 4-bedroom houses. The Thames Gateway Delivery Plan proposes 2,100 new homes within Averley. 43 Purfleet Road is a brownfield site within the existing settlement boundary. It is a windfall site. It has not been included on the LPA's Strategic Housing Availability Land Assessment Report, and the LPA currently cannot demonstrate the 5-year housing land supply. The development is in a sustainable location. This scheme provides 5 high-quality homes, promoting local character and distinctiveness with bay windows, porches, and hipped roofs. These properties meet minimum space standards. They are lifetime homes. Each house has in excess of 1.2 metre private side access, gardens of 12 metre depth, and a layout and house design to mitigate against overlooking. The LPA policy CSTP1 proposes 60 houses per hectare. This application has 35.5 houses per hectare, down from the previous 42.6, thus no overdevelopment. The scheme provides a 4.8 metre wide access on Purfleet Road, allowing for 2-way vehicle movement. Highways have noted the concern regarding manoeuvrability on the development. On the 23rd of November, Capital Transport Planning have produced some amendments to the parking layout which demonstrate the 12 parking spaces can be used simultaneously. The latest swept path analysis shows an acceptable level of manoeuvrability on the site to ensure all parking will remain on the development with no overspill onto the surrounding streets. The development provides 12 parking spaces, including 2 visitor spaces. The 8% gradient on the site complies with the Essex Design Guide Highway Technical Manual 2018. More partners, who are an arboricultural and landscape consultancy with over 30 years experience and regularly work alongside the LPA's landscape consultant, have produced a landscape plan, planting schedule, and a 5-year maintenance requirement for the development. This provides providing 12 new trees, 142 hedges, 61 shrubs, and 160 native planting species to provide a net biodiversity gain on the site. This level of planting will be unique in Purfleet Road and is supported by some local residents. The boundary planting provides screening to prevent vehicles being viewed from Purfleet Road's frontage, removing any visual impact on neighbouring residents. The development provides high-quality housing and accommodates new households with extra spend and investment in local shops and services. I therefore urge members to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your address there. As is the procedure of the committee, I'll now go back to the member staff if there are any questions following the speaker's statement. You can return to your seat. Thank you very much. No further questions? Then I'll open the application for debate if somebody'd like to start. We go Councillor Arnold, then Councillor Piccolo, Councillor Watson, Councillor Shinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I remember the previous application that came before us quite a few months ago. I remember it well. There was a lot of debate. And a lot of that actually centred around parking, etc., and how that would be dealt with. I actually don't see much substantial difference with this application. Myself, I've kind of looked at it again and I've revisited the site. I've had a good look. There's no denying that the site is big enough to take this amount of properties. But I think the site is relatively unique, with the rise in the landscape and the access. and I still think we're struggling with the amount of vehicles and where they're going to be parked. And I think it's very easy to create a scheme that looks fantastic on paper, but in reality, I think sometimes it's a lot harder to actually carry out in reality. I think if I remember right in my comments at the time, were there are too many properties for this site, and I think I still would be looking for that number to be reduced. That in turn would alleviate all the problems, the potential problems with the parking. I will again go along with a recommendation to vote to refuse. Like I say, I think it's just about the numbers of properties on there, and obviously weighing that alongside the site layout, the location, and the rise in the land. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. We go to Councillor Piccolo next, and then Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got the same problems with the parking. I'm very concerned of this. I think I think I'm right. Has a swept path analysis been done on the parking bays? In other words, because it looks like the cars are fronted one another. It doesn't look very wide. And if you're parked in the parking bay closest to the house, and there's two cars parked in the parking bays opposite, it looks virtually impossible for that car to be able to get out without a lot of manoeuvring and juggling about. And that's the same in all instances. I think the design is very cramped. I think they're trying to get too many houses on the plot, and the parking just won't work. And I can see it leading to the owners of the house, or if they can't easily get into their parking space, just parking it on the road. Obviously, for the reasons I've stated there, I'm against this application as it stands in present. I've got no problem with there being houses on the site, but I think they're trying to get too many in, and it will cause too many problems to the local road network as it stands at present.
Thank you very much, Councillor Piccolo. We go to Councillor Watson, then Shinnott, then Little.
Thank you, Chair. I share the same problems with Councillor Piccolo, Councillor Arnold. I haven't really got an issue with the houses, though to me that looks very overdeveloped. The bit I have got the issue with is that you go from a 4.8 width going in straight into a 3.4, and I really get that the waste disposal can be from the street, but if somebody's having a heart attack, I'm pretty sure the ambulance can't be on the street, or if a fire was going on, the fire brigade will be on the street either. And I just feel that the parking needs to really be thought out, and maybe less of a development. I do still feel it's overdeveloped. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Shinnott.
Thank you. My concerns the same as Councillor Piccolo and Watson. It seems that they're putting too much in that space, and it's on a bend, you know, on the corner. We've got objections, loss of privacy, overlooking, concerns regarding access to the site, which is the main thing, additional traffic. And the main concern is the parking, because it doesn't matter where you go in the borough. People don't park in designated parking spaces. They park at the top of the road. You can't get ambulances in and refuge vehicles, you know, fire brigade. For me, it's a no-brainer. I'm not voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. I did go and have a look at the site, and it is ripe for development, but it's like putting a size 8 foot in a size 5 shoe. It never fit. It's totally overdeveloped for what I would consider, and following our rules of the HAPI, the happy, you know, to have people living in happy, nice accommodation. Why keep doing loads of small accommodation that people perhaps wouldn't be quite so happy in? And if you look at where the windows is, etc., you know, light going in would be difficult, and also the parking, as everyone said, and if they're putting all their dustbins out the front. If a service vehicle like an ambulance presumably would have to visit the site, they would surely go in the front door rather than the back door. They've either got the option of either trying to get through a load of cars or a load of bins, aren't they? So, you know, it is a good site for development, but certainly not to this extent. Thank you.
Any further debate on the application? Councillor Carter.
I agree with my colleagues here. It's a site I quite like, but it is, I think Councillor Little summed that up perfectly about a size 8 foot trying to fit into a size 5 shoe. It's it's just a bit too much here, really. But I do like the site, but I'm going to be voting against tonight.
Any further comment from the committee? I'm minded to move on the recommendation then if we're all ready. So recommendation is on page 56 and the recommendation is for refusal. I'm minded to move in favour of the recommendation. Those in favour? Thank you. And those against the recommendation? Councillor Sandy, thank you. So on that application, the recommendation for refusal has been upheld. We now move on to agenda item 10, and this is land adjoining Fobbing Acres and Mill Lane, Fobbing, Essex, application 2201074. We'll now go to the planning officers who will give the committee a presentation. I think we have a little technical glitch going on, if we just bear with it.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Where's the echo? Thank you, Chair. No, it's not. Is that still? No, it's still okay. Can you pop it back on that? Company.
Do we need 5 minutes?
Thank you. Sorry about that, Chair. So, thank you. So the application proposes planning permission for the use of the land as a residential gypsy traveller site and for associated operational development comprising the stationing of a static caravan and formation of a gravel driveway. So that's the application site in front of you in red. That's High Road in Fobbing, and this is Mill Lane, which runs parallel with the High Road. So that's an aerial photo of the site. That's a zoomed in site plan showing the entrance to the site in the northeast corner. And that's the proposed layout using the same entrance and the siting of a static caravan with a driveway in front. And that's a plan and elevation showing what the proposed caravan would look like. That's a view to the access to the site, which you can just see in the middle of the picture. This is Mill Lane, which is a public right-of-way. That's looking into the entrance to the site from Mill Lane. That's looking across the site at the moment, which is largely open, apart from a concrete base with a touring caravan on. That's looking from the public footpath on Mill Lane through a gap in the hedge. You can see the site through there. So the application site is an unallocated parcel of grazing land within the Greenbelt. As indicated, sites within the Greenbelt for residential caravan development is inappropriate development and is harmful by definition. The planning policy for traveller statement clarifies that personal circumstances are not very special circumstances that would give weight to such a development in the Greenbelt, and the onus is on the applicant to demonstrate that circumstances exist to overcome the intrinsic harm caused to the Greenbelt by the intrusion of new development. The matters put forward by the applicant include a lack of supply of sites, and whilst it is acknowledged the council does not currently have an identified supply of sites to meet a rolling 5-year supply, the council is working on a new GTAA to develop a plan for new traveller sites in the Greenbelt, and this is not a reason to allow ad hoc development in this case. The applicant also advises he is living locally sharing a site, but there is nothing to suggest this site is overcrowded or provides unsuitable accommodation for him. Furthermore, no evidence other than a location close to the schools has been put forward to justify why site here in this location is required. Officers have also considered the applicant's individual rights according to the European Convention on Human Rights and also the best interests of the applicant's children. But none of these matters, either singularly or collectively, clearly outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt and the wider harm that would arise from the development. The proposal is therefore objectionable in principle and detrimental to the openness of the Greenbelt. As we can see from the pictures, the site is a parcel of grazing land where there are views from the public right-of-way along Mill Lane. At present, it is a generally open site with no development. A mobile home, touring caravan and the residential use of the site would also see an accumulation of residential materials and paraphernalia such as park vehicles, garden equipment and play equipment. These would be prominent from public views along the footpath and contrary to the undeveloped nature of the parcels of land along Mill Lane and also contrary to the openness of the Greenbelt. The development would therefore also be contrary to policies CSTP 22 and PMD 2 as they would be harmful to the character and appearance of the area. Members will note that some of the local objections refer to the presence of protected species within the site, particularly bats and badgers. The presence of protected species must be properly investigated and no surveys have been provided with the application submission. The applicant has therefore not properly explored the potential for harm to ecology on the site. So therefore that is also a concern for officers. Other matters of detail, including access points and neighbour amenity, raise no concerns or objection. But for the reason of Greenbelt principle and openness, character and visual amenity, and potential ecological impacts, the proposal is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I open this up for questions, and Councillor Arnold has indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I took the opportunity to seek this piece of land out today. It is incredibly hard to find. You do actually have to go along, probably I would say, at least half a mile of unmade road to get to it. And where this site is actually after the unmade road, and it then descends into just grass and mud and soil path. I would say actually, probably on an application like this, it really would be beneficial if we could have an aerial photograph of the site rather than the grainy map, because of, from the map that I could saw in the agenda, you really can't make it out where on earth it is. When I actually got to there today, Like I said, actually a few residents came out to see me because they wanted to know who I was and what I was doing there. And luckily they actually led me to the site so I could find it. During that conversation, it was pointed out to me, or it was suggested to me, that the access lane to the site is actually owned by somebody else and there is registered title on that land. Can you confirm to me that this is or isn't the case? Because I'm also told that that person objecting has written to the council.
In terms of the application, the applicant submitted information to show that they own the red line site area, which is the rectangle that has been shown on the presentation. I understand that residents have written in to say there are land ownership issues with the access. That would be a matter that would be outside the planning process. If it is owned by third parties and they could prevent the applicant from accessing the site, that would be for them, that wouldn't be for the planning process. We can consider the principle and whether the development's acceptable. If they can access it, or if they can't access it, or they're prevented from accessing it, that's sort of outside what we need to consider tonight.
Okay, thank you. And just one other question. Are there any services at all running to that site?
Just bear with me a second. Yeah, there weren't any details on the plans showing electricity connection or water connection or gas connection, but again, that would be something that would be for the applicant if they got permission to make those connections if needed.
Oh, okay, thank you again very much for that, because it does actually just look like a field to me.
Councillor Little, you indicated you'd like to ask some questions.
Yeah, like Councillor Arnold, it does look just like a green field. So with sewage, etc., because that would be, there's no sewage facilities?
Again, I haven't got that level of detail, but if permission were to be granted, we could put a condition on requiring connection to the mains if that's what members were looking for. And that's a condition that does appear on some Gypsy and Traveller applications where they're approved.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just add that plenty of rural properties probably have septic tanks. They did not necessarily a direct link to the main. So, in terms of that, there would be the potential for obviously potentially putting a septic tank if they need to.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. You could have a septic tank, but you also have to have a septic tank emptied. And like Councillor Arnold, I know it's not for us to decide if we can go up and down the road, or he would be able to go up on the road, but it seems pretty ridiculous. They're not going to have a sewer go and have it be pumped out twice a year, are they? So, yeah, I just think it's, well, I'll leave it for debate. Thank you.
So we are in question stage. Are there any more questions for the officers at the moment? Well, then I'll open the application up for debate. Anybody got any comments? Councillor Piccolo and then Councillor Liss.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I've got concerns over this site. One of the concerns that I've got is it's a very large site, and the proposed caravan or mobile home or whatever is right at it looks like it's at the far end of the site. I'm concerned because it's such a big site, if we give occupancy to part of it, what could take place on the rest of the site. It just appears it's going to be like a pimple on a haystack, you know, that I think it will look out of character for the area. I think what the other councillors have brought up regarding the access to the site is also a big concern. So yeah, I'm not happy because I'm concerned about the site developing going forward. If it was a smaller plot of land, and it was restricted for further usage or development, I wouldn't be so concerned. But I'm quite concerned that it's such a large plot of land with what potentially looks like quite a small development on it, or bungalow on it.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Carter?
Councillor Little was before me, Chair. Okay, sure. Well, I'm very concerned certain things weren't done. Sorry, I forgot the word there, I had a bit of a moment. But like with the endangered species and protecting badgers, for example, that none of this paperwork was supplied. For me, it's quite clear to agree with the officer's recommendations on this one, and we should always have the proper paperwork for a whole application. Thanks.
Apologies for taking councillors out of turn. We'll go Councillor Little and then Councillor Shinnock.
Thank you, Chair. As you probably realise, I shan't be voting for this. Where we normally look quite, type of favourably, as Councillor Piccolo said, and there is a need for traveller type places. But on this one, I think we would be opening a can of worms. I think it wouldn't just end up as one, it would be several. I'm concerned about the services, particularly the sewage, so that could lead, they could just do it as a soakaway, which would add to pollution. You've got the idea of them walking up and down with their wheelie bins, half a mile lane, as Councillor Arnold said. And I just think it's totally inappropriate place to be. So, and I did wonder, and I should have asked this some questions about the strip of concrete on it, how that was allowed, but I forgot that bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shinnock.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Little. I think that if we allow this to go through, I can see that there'll be more caravans going on that site in time. So for me, I'll be definitely voting against. Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you. I haven't got a problem with caravans going on sites. What I have got a problem with is the lack of facilities that's already on that site. So these families have been here, they're Thurrock families. And according to us, we also need to find, over the next 5 years, 8 pitches. So for me, even though I don't think this site is right now, it's not to say in the future it couldn't be. And it's not to say in the future that they could come back with something, as long as we know what we're doing with the supplies. And also, we have got, as an authority, a way of controlling how many goes on what. But we also must take in consideration they need as much support as anybody else. So on this occasion, I will go against this on the basis I think they need to go away and think about the utilities, the sewage supply. And if the entrance is owned by somebody else, they need to work out how that easement works as well, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further debate on this application? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'll keep it brief. So we'll obviously be going along with the officer's recommendation. I would actually add that maybe, if there is a further application, maybe there might be a little bit more research done into the actual present usage of supposed family on that site. It's totally inappropriate in this area. I think obviously the local plan is going to be coming towards us sort of reasonably soon. I know there'll be provision for gypsy and traveller sites within that, and I'm sure those pitches will be much better placed, much better locations, and really, ultimately, much better places to live for the residents of those areas. I just think this is utterly the wrong place. Thank you.
Indeed, Councillor Arnold, I do feel that is a bit premature. We're ahead of our local development plan, and Thurrock has always been more than generous in its allocation of gypsy and traveller sites, as we have seen with our neighbours in Basildon and Essex and Southend, when we've had regional strategies imposed on us before. We have sites that make very good neighbours. We're not against in principle, but I concur with the comments of the committee, and if everybody's happy, I'm ready to move on this recommendation. I'll be moving in support of the officer recommendation on page 74, and the recommendation is for refusal. Is that seconded? Approved? Oh, those in favour, sorry. Is Rhiannon there? Has she got the count? Yeah. That's unanimous anyway. So the officer recommendation refusal is supported. Thank you very much. I do note that we've just had a ward member for Aveley join the planning committee. I don't know, was he here for the Aveley Purfleet Road application? Okay, so we'll move on to our next application. Agenda item number 11 on page 77 of the committee, and this is footbridge and car park, Orchard Road, South Ockenden. If we could go to the planning officers for a presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks planning permission for the removal of the existing pedestrian footbridge and the erection of a new pedestrian footbridge and ramped access across the railway line between Orchard Road and Ardmore Road in South Ockenden. So you can see the application site here. It's an irregular shaped site. So the footbridge would head south along there and north up there. It also comprises part of the car park to the northeast, where there are some changes to the parking layout. So that's an aerial photo at present showing the car parking area and the footbridge. That's the proposed eastern ramps, and that's the car parking area. So you will see there are some changes to the car parking layout. There will be a number of spaces removed from that car park to facilitate the longer ramps to the northeast. And it's the other way round. So that's the northeastern side of the bridge, and that's the southwestern side of the bridge. Those are the proposed elevations. It's a fairly straightforward footbridge, and those are elevations of the ramps, again, fairly straightforward and similar to what you'd see anywhere else. These are some existing photos. So that's the car park on Orchard Road looking towards the existing bridge. That's another view from the pedestrian footpath looking west towards the bridge from the car park. That's looking north along Orchard Road with the car park to the northeast. That's looking from the Orchard Road car park across the railway line. That's looking from the footbridge looking south along the back of properties on Orchard Road. That's looking down the ramp on the Orchard Road side. That's looking across towards the Ardmore Road side from Orchard Road. That's looking towards Ardmore Road from the top of the bridge. And that's looking towards the bridge from the Ardmore Road side. And that's a sort of wider picture looking towards the existing bridge. So the existing bridge is in poor condition and requires refurbishment. At present, the bridge doesn't comply with modern accessibility standards, and the replacement bridge would allow for current accessibility standards to be met and provide long-term solutions at this key crossing point. As you'll have seen from the presentation, the replacement bridge will be largely in the same location as the existing bridge, but with longer access ramps to allow better access for disabled users. The ramps would need to be longer due to the shallower gradient to allow disabled access. The design of the bridge is fairly functional and replicates many other bridges throughout the borough and the county. So there's no concerns in terms of the design of the bridge. as there are longer ramps, there are potential for more views from those ramps towards nearby residents, but it's not considered those would be harmful. The highways team don't object to the application, and this is a key crossing point in the middle of South Ockenden. The existing bridge is in such a poor condition it would cost more, I understand, to repair than it would for the new bridge. So it's recommended for approval on the basis of the positive benefits to it.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions. With the new bridge, will there be more lighting, and will the lighting be shielded from being seen from, you know, houses or existing places?
Yet the design team, as part of the sort of scoping process, recognise that there is antisocial behaviour on the bridge, and they will be looking at sort of improved lighting. But I understand what they were looking at was sort of down lighting under either under the handles or under the parapet, so it wouldn't be something that caused harm to neighbours. Yeah, it's been fully considered.
And my other question is the type of fencing. Will it be solid fencing going along there? If you go back to your plans, at the minute I keep looking at myself on there rather than the you know, when you had the other plans, the actual, you know, will there be a lot more fencing? And what would be the height of the fence?
There shouldn't be more fencing. The bridge itself has the sort of palisade appearance, and there is screening and landscaping afforded by some of the existing vegetation, and there is a condition for the applicant to look at providing additional landscaping around the bridge where they can.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be in the skies of wooden fencing, etc., or something that we're going to get loads of graffiti on, or also make it dangerous if you were a person walking along there yourself at night, where, you know, at the moment it's very open. If you screamed, people would hear you, but perhaps not if you had it, you know, more fencing.
Yeah, I understand the applicants work with the designing out crime team at the police, Essex Police, in kind of putting together the solution that we've got before us tonight. So the issues of crime have been considered, and as I said, the appearance of the bridge has got open elements to improve safety and vision through it and from it.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously welcome this new bridge. Anything is an improvement, and obviously seems to be. You know, there's a lot of new properties on that side, on one side of the footbridge, and I know so getting from A to B from one side to the other is very, very good. Are there any kind of measures in place to actually stop, I wouldn't say vehicle movements, but let's just say quad bikes, etc., from accessing the bridge, shooting across? I don't know what the accessibility is at the bases of the bridge.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the plans have got that level of detail on it. As I said, it is something the applicants had looked at with the designing out crime team. We could, I think one of the agents for the applicant is here, so he will have heard members' concerns about those issues, so they can be taken back and looked at in terms of the final structure of the bridge and those issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be helpful. I mean, obviously the access has got to be wide enough for obviously the very obvious things, pushchairs, wheelchairs, etc. But if anything needs to be in place to actually take anything, or to stop anything that we can, I think that would be very advantageous. Thank you.
We have Councillor Watson, then Councillor Piccolo.
Thank you, Chair. Can I know the bridge very, very, very well, by the way. So, and it is a lifeline between one side of the Ockenden over to the rails, so it saves you a 20-minute walk. Just a couple of things, not on the bridge really. Orchard Road, the car park, when was that picture taken? And also, it looks like there's hardly anything there, but I know that Ockenden Station is used extensively during the week, and I don't know if that car park is one of those that are used extensively, and we're going to take bays out of there, which means that then it will go onto the road surrounding it, like Orchard Road.
Yeah, the case officer took the pictures on his way home in the last couple of weeks, and he lives in Kent, so if we allow an hour for him to get home, it was sort of late afternoon one day in the last couple of weeks. So they are recent pictures, yeah. I'll pass over to Julian for the other questions.
Sorry, can I just make a suggestion? Maybe you should go about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and take the pictures and see what it looks like then. Because what I'm really worried about is if we start taking out car park spaces, and I'm not saying the bridge doesn't need to be replaced, because it does, it's been like that for absolutely years, that means that that will be additional down Orchard Road, which is already a massive problem with parking, and also around the Flowers Estate. So it would be really good to have a look for us, Julian.
I don't really need to have a look because it is, you're right, it is well used by commuters along that. We've been looking at another application in this area, and that's one of the issues. It is a point that I actually raised with the highways maintenance team who put this application forward in terms of the loss of parking. But they are introducing further restrictions in Tamarisk Road and then within the car park to prevent well, not particularly totally prevent, but to control the parking in that area. So a lot of the bays along Tamarisk Road will be converted to a mixed use. So there will be pay and display and limited waiting stroke residence parking for residents. So there will be more residents parking in the area as well. And that will be the same for the car park. The car park will have parking controls in it to control the level of parking, so it'll be pay and display within the car park as well. So taking those into the fact that the parking will be lost, I don't dispute that, but overall, in fact, the fact that it's now going to be controlled rather than be free for all as is at the moment, and obviously it tends to be, like you said, commuters dominated now with the mixed use bays, residents and pay and display bays. There's an opportunity for residents to use the bays as well as commuters. So that mixed use is going to prevent some commuter parking, but also allow some further residents parking in the area.
Okay, thank you. One other thing, I'm going to sound like Councillor Redstill here, so sorry, but the trees that you're going to take out, are they what? And can we replace those trees somewhere else as mature? It's just that we seem to be getting less and less trees at the moment. Thanks.
Yeah, there will need to be some removal to the trees on the Orchard Road side. There is a condition number 7, which is the soft landscaping scheme, which includes replacement trees. So the applicant will be looking at replanting trees to compensate for the loss of those trees. And there's also condition 6. There were some tree protection measures submitted with the application, so the trees that will remain will be protected during the construction, so that they'll be looked after and maintained.
Councillor Piccolo.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I thought I'd bring it up at this point. It could have possibly waited till later, but because it looks at the footbridge is going to be hard boarded, for want of a better word. In other words, going to service. In Stamford, some 20 odd years ago, we had a skateboard park put in, and because the bridge, and you can see from that, tends to be a point for graffiti artists to what's the name. What we actually done in Stamford when the skateboard park was put in, we actually got a renowned graffiti artist to come along and ask the local kids from the area to come along. So they sort of done the outline, the kids filled it in, and believe it or not, for probably 4 or 5 years, there was no graffiti on it because people tended to respect the fact that it was done by local people. So possibly you could look at something similar to that for this footbridge.
Thank you very much, Councillor Piccolo. I have a couple of questions on this as well. So on that very point, on the bridge, there are already panels that are on there, artist panels that were designed, funded and done by the community, by the then South Ockenden Community Forum. Technically, they're still in their ownership. And on the consultations, although I know there was a public consultation that went round, because I know as a ward member that I was part of that consultation, so I can verify it did happen. I just wonder if the agent, if they would listen in, maybe make contact with the Bellas and Ockenden Community Forum as regards those panels, what will happen with them, is there a space from on the new bridge, or possibly work with them, as Councillor Piccolo said, if they're going to go forward with perhaps a new design, perhaps work with the residential groups and community groups to engage with the youth, because I do think it is quite correct. Once somebody takes ownership of something, it's less likely to be used in ways that perhaps is not agreeable to everybody. The other thing that I noticed on the consultations, Network Rail were a consultee. Up on the website, we're still saying that they're asking for extended time to formulate a response. Although in the actual report, it says that they've got no objections. So I'm not quite sure whether we have had their responses and it's just not been uploaded, or whether we're assuming because they haven't responded that we're assuming they've got no objections. I'd just like some clarification on that, please.
Yeah, so I've seen the email from Network Rail. So on page 79, they have written in subsequent to their holding email, and the response, as on page 79, is their up-to-date response. So they have said that they're happy with it, subject to no encroachment on Network Rail land. So yeah, they are happy with it.
I just wanted that clarification. Thank you. Are there any more questions for the officers on this bridge? I'll open it up for debate, and if you don't mind, I'll exercise my privilege and go first on this. I think this scheme has got a lot of merits. I'm glad to see that we are addressing the DDA aspects of it, and also, I mean, nowadays we, as Councillor Arnold alluded to, we have a younger demographic, and as well as the access for the mobility scooters and people with disabilities, also for younger families using buggies and being able to link the two parts of the borough together, of the ward together, I think is good. I'm very happy to hear that we have consulted with the Design Act Crime team for Essex Police, because as you quite rightly identified, it's an area that does come up for antisocial behaviour on our radar quite a bit. As regards to replanting, we do have something like 250 whips sitting in Mollen Lade allotments at the moment that are looking homes. Again, this is with the Limes, the Flowers Resident Action Group. They've got these whips, young trees to be planted. They're working with schools and that in the area. So again, it might be a project to, going back to Councillor Piccolo's point, that if we can engage, we're getting the community to plant these trees, they'll also take ownership of it. It's just a suggestion, not an actual planning requirement. I understand that. So all of that said, personally I'm minded. I think it's, if we're going to address the lighting, if we're going to address some of the issues as regards to parking issues on the Orchard Road car park, I was at the Flowers Residents Association where they are in discussions, as Councillor Arnold alluded to as well, that to get a parking permit scheme in place because of the commuter parking. So I think we've got a problem across the borough. Where there's a school, there's problems with traffic. Where there's a train station, we have problems with parking. So so from my point of view, that I am minded to move in favour of the officer's recommendation. I'll now open it up for further debate. Councillor Picklow.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. From the officer report, it's obvious that the current bridge is not in a very good state of repair. It's not going to get in any better state of repair. It seems that, well, it doesn't seem, we've been told that the supply of this new bridge would actually be cheaper than refurbishing the old bridge, and that cost to refurbish the old bridge, if we don't do something about it now, is only going to get higher. I think the benefits of the sloped access will help people, and I think the new design will go in keeping with it. I can't see any reason why we shouldn't be supporting this application. It just makes sense aesthetically, on a cost basis, and on a community basis for it to be approved. So I'll be supporting the application.
Oh, sorry. Any further debate? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. The footbridge does actually need replacing. It's been what needed to be done for a few years now anyway. And I do like the idea that it will have a ramp access. So if we can get the community to support more, get involved, and I'm very much an advocate of getting the children on graffiti artists in, you know, to do it properly. They will take ownership of that. That bridge is used extensively. Not just by me either, but like it's used quite a bit. So in that respect, I'm in favour of this. So I will be supporting this application. Thank you.
Councillor Shinnick.
Yeah, I'm going to support this application because I think, you know, get local people involved, you know, with it. It's a bonus, and it's got to be an improvement for Rockenden. You know, it is a mess at the moment. So is anything you do will be a great improvement. Thank you.
Sorry, you caught me off guard there with that comment about Ockenden in general, but I'll get back to the, sorry, Councillor Little.
Yes, I shall be voting for this proposal, and it makes sense. It's a new bridge, it's better, it's going to be safer, better accessibility, as long as we don't have motorbikes going over it, but wheelchairs, and as Councillor Arnold said, pushchairs, etc. And I think it will be really good. But I was a bit thrown by it was a mess in South Ockenden. I thought it was quite, you know, it's nice, and it's nicer getting a new bridge as well. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold.
Well, I did listen to that comment myself, and I just hope that Councillor Shinnick was actually pointing out that the old bridge is a mess and not. So I did hold back.
Having just had a Christmas light celebration up at Ockenden Village, the village looks absolutely beautiful at the moment. So I digress. Sorry. Back to the business of the committee. We go to the recommendation, which is on page 85. Recommend approve subject to the following conditions. I'm in support. All those in support. Oh, sorry. I've just been reminded I did need a second. Are you happy to do that, Councillor Watson? Yeah, your hand did go up first. Yeah. So Seconded by Councillor Watson. And those in favour? It looks unanimous to me. Thank you. Apologies for that, crew. Right, I think that concludes our meeting this evening, and thank you very much for everybody attending. And I know that some of us, myself included, had trouble getting here this evening. Oh, and if I don't see other members or officers prior, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and let's hope for a better New Year, guys.